I'll quickly go through who we are and what we do. I head up the demand generation practice here at eDynamic. eDynamic is a digital consultancy firm. We are focused on the marketing side of the business, helping customers both on optimizing their acquisition and engagement, customer engagement initiatives using technology. We've been around for quite a while, and we have expertise in a number of industries. We are a global organization. I'm calling from Canada. Our head office is in New York, and we also have operations in the Middle East and Dubai, as well as our main development center in India. In terms of our capabilities, we span a number of technologies in marketing automation, in content management systems, in communities, in analytics. We manage and execute these technologies on behalf of our customers or provide strategic guidance in selecting tools or in putting in front-end business processes that would inform the configuration of some of these tools. In terms of what we do in marketing automation, we focus mainly on strategy and consulting, in campaign design and execution, in managed services, and in implementation services. So why we are here, we want to talk about big data. So some of the topics that we would like to discuss in today's webinar are what exactly is big data. There's a lot of buzz and talk and lots of articles about it, so we'll try to put that into focus. How does it affect you as a marketer? I think that's the main question that we all want to answer and see how can we deal with big data. What are some of the key facets of big data, and what should we be ready to deal with? How do we get started? What is it that we need to do in our own businesses in order to be able to interpret and use this data effectively? And then finally, how do we drive customer engagement, because that's what this is all about. Before we start, I will ask Camia to put up a poll just to get a feel from the room on your attitude, your perspective on big data. Camia? Great, thanks. Thank you all for answering. It looks like many of you have challenges. About 35% of you are in the early stages of development, and a good chunk of you have no plans yet. And I think something that you'd find really interesting is that big data actually affects all that we do. There are really simple things that we can do in our kind of normal marketing lives that can be used to think about big data, prepare for big data, or actually be able to engage with customers a little better, knowing what we know, what big data is really about. So moving on, so what exactly is big data? If you go back to about 2002, there was a study done by the University of Southern California, and what that study showed was that in 2002, digital data actually exceeded the amount of analog data that was stored in tapes, in files, in paper, and so on. So what basically happened from about 2002 onwards is that the amount of data, or the digitization of data, began growing. At about 2000, in about 5 years, in about 2007, the amount of data stored globally was close to 94% of all the information that was available. From 2007 to this year, so the next 5 years, this number has been growing exponentially to a point where there are about 2.5 exabytes of data created every day. What's an exabyte? An exabyte is a billion gigabytes. So we are now processing or storing enough information that about 10 or 15 years ago, all of the internet had less information than what we're processing every day now. So that's how fast it's growing, and that's one of the reasons why we are having this conversation today about big data. This is from Wipro, and it shows the volume of data stored in different parts of the world. This is in petabytes. 1 petabyte is about 1 million gigabytes. So again, there's an explosion of data happening in the world. And what's driving this? So until very recently, most data was stored in data warehouses, in repositories, and was being sliced, diced, segmented, and sent out for campaigns and such. But today there are 3 main drivers for big data. One is social, the other is mobile, and the third is cloud computing. And the 3 together are creating this big storm of information that is happening in the world. So here are some stats for on each of these topics. So about 20% of Facebook users have purchased something because of ads or comments they saw. In terms of YouTube, they're now the 2nd largest search engine. 91% of today's online adults use social media. And then on the mobile side, about 45% of US businesses are doing something with mobile marketing. So they're either they are creating mobile sites or responsive design websites. They might be creating apps, so mobile apps, custom apps for some of the main devices. Or they might be using QR codes and promotions. So there's a lot of mobile activity that's happening. The number of email opens in the first 6 months of this year has seen an 80% increase on pure mobile devices versus desktop or Outlook and more traditional ways of seeing email. From Morgan Stanley, they say that by 2013, so by next year, the number of mobile internet users will actually cross the number of desktop internet users that there are. And then this is only going to increase. In terms of the number of tablets, there were 29% of US adults own some form of a tablet. Today's a big day because the iPad mini is being launched. So now you've got tablets in every price range, and that is only going to increase. In the workplace also, from Forrester, we know that about 60%, 66% of information workers are using at least 2 devices, one of them being a smartphone and the other 2 being a laptop or a desktop. The rest have combinations of these devices. About 60% use all 4. And about 12% of office or business users are using tablets. And then the third aspect to this, which was cloud computing, this is also growing exponentially. It's partly because a lot of the technologies are now being served off the cloud. Google, Amazon being two of the biggest players in the space, Rackspace being more of a service vendor, and they're also providing uh, uh, storage and hosting for a number of popular tools and services. So this stat from the Globe and Mail says that 50% of Global 1000 companies will have stored customer-sensitive data in the public cloud in about 4 years from now. In terms of the industry, cloud computing is growing by about $241 billion by 2020, and it's about $61 billion this year. Again, really staggering numbers. 61% of all corporate computing is happening in the cloud, whether you know that or not. Everyone knows that Google's got these massive servers. This is a snapshot of their one of their newer data facilities or data centers in Finland. And they do about 2.2 billion kilowatt hours, which can, I think, service about 70 to 80,000 full-sized homes in North America. And about 20 petabytes of data is processed every day through data centers like this. So it's massive, massive amounts of information that's being passed. So if you think about data and what the facets are for data, there are basically three. There's volume, there's velocity, and then there's variety. And we'll just talk about these three briefly. So the first is volume. So we have seen that with storage, with social, mobile, and cloud being what it is, there's massive amounts of information that's being processed and that's being kind of transferred over the internet every day. One of the main causes for this, as we saw, was social. And what social does is social has this capacity to amplify information. So what you send out once can then be multiplied across a number of channels like Facebook and Twitter and Dig and so on. And then that gets picked up by followers and their followers and so on. And before you know it, you create this perfect storm of knowledge about a certain topic, about a certain incident, and so on. So from you're going much beyond, let's say, a traditional list or capturing data that you might acquire through other means. It's going much beyond your own customer base. Your reach is actually quite wide. In terms of velocity, I just pulled this from CNET a little while ago, and they have this live broadcast for the iPad mini. And one of the interesting things about big data is that in some cases it's not so much about volume, it's about the speed of getting that data to the marketer, to the business, in order for you to be able to act on it and gain some competitive advantage. In this example, for instance, they're doing a survey in real time, and this information, for instance, can tell CNET what would the potential sales be for each of these products that are coming out soon, just based on the type of polls that they're conducting. Macy's had a Black Friday sale not so long ago, but last year I think, and what was seen there was that MIT actually looked at all of the mobile devices that were in the parking lot, and they were able to tell even before Macy's could open or disclose what their sales volume was for Black Friday. They were able to predict what the sales volume was. So media companies, marketers, trying to gain competitive intelligence. There's a lot of information out there that you can gain very quickly and be able to use that to your advantage. So velocity plays a big role. The third aspect to this is variety. We know that everyone's a talking, walking data generator because of social media to a great extent. and the platforms on which social media runs, mainly mobile. But there are other aspects to it too. There's GPS. There's tools that are tracking your activity, that know where you are. Uh, you might even inform a system that, Foursquare is an example of that, where you check in and you tell a system where you are. So there's a number of different kind of interactions happening. On one side, you've got people informing people, and there's that connection happening. The other is people with talking to machines. So GPS would be an example of that. The third is machines with machines. GPS data being passed to a company's servers in order for triggers to be sent out, or for that data to be just captured and stored. So one aspect to big data, or this volume of data, is that there's gobs of it, and it's all over the place. It's not just people generating it or people telling you this. It's also the internet. It's tools. It's apps that are talking to each other and generating this information. So if you want to take a look at what characterizes big data versus kind of the old data, the ordinary data, the small data, whatever you want to call it, big data is not traditional data in the sense that you can just take it and store it, because there's just too much of it. The other aspect to it is it's very dynamic, and by the nature of it being dynamic, it means it's also unstructured. It's coming from multiple sources all the time, and trying to get that all together in one place can be a challenge. Most traditional data might be stored in a data warehouse. With big data, it's everywhere, and that might be in places that you're least expecting it. So one has to come to grips with the fact that with data out there, how do you manage it? How do you analyze it? How do you get your hands on it to be able to leverage it? In terms of complexity, one of Google's directors of research said that we don't have more complex algorithms. All we have is lots of data, to paraphrase him. But essentially what's happening is, in the past you had these complex matrices of information that you would cross-reference to be able to get a cut of data that you could then segment. You can then decide who to market to. Today it's a little different. You're getting lots of information coming in from multiple sources. And all you need to do is be able to kind of filter out the signal from the noise in that data. And the good news is that there are some strong signals in this information that can actually be used. So that's another facet. The other characteristic of big data is that it's real time. So kind of in the old paradigm, you had to batch process data, you had to manually put it together, you sent it to a data cleansing shop or a merge and purge shop where you kind of consolidated all that information. By the time you do that with information that's coming in from cloud apps, from your mobile apps, from social, it's already outdated. So that means that anything you do with big data has to be automated, has to be in real time. The other aspect to it is, because you're getting volumes of information coming in, it's actually quite easy to be able to distill some of this information and be able to predict what customers might want, because that's some of the information that they're going to tell you through big data, as opposed to more static information that you might have, where you're doing more of a hindsight look back at history and try to predict the future. So the big question is, why does this really matter for marketing folks like us? Basically because it's not about the data. there is a lot of data, but like we said, it's unstructured. There's too much of it. So for a marketer and even for if you're in other businesses that are leveraging big data, it's not so much about capturing this information and storing it. It's all about insight. Every marketing blog and Twitter feed and Facebook page essentially says join the conversation. People are joining these conversations. They're forwarding this to others as well. What you need to do is be able to gather insight from this information, from these forwards. It's very similar to an email forward when someone's forwarding a Twitter feed. So the main thing to keep in mind is it's not so much about the data, but it's what insights you can derive from it that can help you then plan, strategize, create the type of campaigns that would engage this audience. A couple of aspects that you got to think about. One of them is understand where your customers are. So when making purchasing decisions, for instance, research shows that people are using multiple sources. Very often your own website or your own brochures, your own salespeople might be the last to be asked about anything regarding your own products. This might come from search engines, it might come from discussion forums, it might come from third-party blogs. It might come from validation sites like consumer advocacy groups and so on. So being aware of where your customers are, where people are searching for this information is critical to figuring out how to A, find them, and B, engage with them. Another aspect to this is who are your best customers. This recent survey showed that about 50% of marketers had zero customer intelligence about their own customers. So they did not know who were their best customers, who were their most loyal customers, and they were not aware of the best way to reach them or engage with them. And that is unfortunately the norm, because most marketers are struggling with all of these various channels, all of these various sources, and are getting overwhelmed by this information. There are numerous applications for big data in marketing, and that's one of the reasons why marketing needs to pay attention. In terms of customer service, we've seen examples of companies like IBM, even B2C companies like Best Buy using, or the telcos using forums, using communities as very effective ways for customer service. Another aspect is just lead generation. So creating link backs, blogging about things, creating referral programs, customizing mobile apps, doing things to bring people into the fold, get them more interested in your content. In terms of SEO and online visibility, there are a number of applications for tracking what keywords are being mentioned. They might be mentioning your name. There are listening tools out there that you can capture this information, and then in essence use that information in your blog, on your website, and all of your web properties. Create YouTube videos. Optimize on those keywords that your customer base is using to seek you or seek products that the companies like you are offering. In terms of product development, the same thing applies. There's a lot of information out there that you can harness in order to maybe develop better products, or create new product releases, or add new services that your customer base or prospective customers might be looking for in your product or service, or in a product or service that you of a genre that you offer. In terms of influencers, there's data that shows that about 3 to 4% of the influencers online can impact about 80% of all of the people online, especially in terms of Twitter, Facebook, blogs, and so on. So how do you reach them? Number of tools, number of ways, number of tactics in which this can be done. But the first thing is in identifying who are the influencers, and that's where big data can play a role. So how do we deal with this? We need to get strategic about how we look at big data. 5 kind of key principles that we like to talk about that kind of guide the discussion around how to deal with big data. The first one is engage with customers wherever they are. So this means looking out for where your current customers came from, digging into the known and unknown data that you have, so your own customer base, talking to your salespeople, for instance, looking at your web analytics, and seeing where are these surprising new niche corners from where your customers are kind of seeking out your products or services. And accordingly, then find ways in which to engage with them on those channels. If you're not on those channels, of course, you're invisible to them, and your competitor might actually be engaging with them a little more. The second aspect to this is make customer intelligence strategic. What does that mean? That basically means derive all of the information that your customers are not telling you. It's their behavioral information. It's their digital footprint. Make sure that you've got analytics, that you've got tracking. If you're using marketing automation software, make sure that your tracking scripts are on all of these web properties. If you've got a Twitter feed, make sure that you're using specific hashtags so at least you're able to track certain conversations. If you're using mobile apps, make sure that your any interaction with your mobile application or website on a mobile device is optimized. But thinking about customer intelligence, there's actually very little data, very few marketers that are actually using customer intelligence in the way that they should. And they're primarily looking at profile information. They're looking at saying, oh, this is my ideal customer. This is the revenue size. This is the type of products he or she buys. This is the demographic, and I want to go after this customer without actually seeing or understanding the behavior of how these customers are actually interacting with you. A third aspect to this, and Harvard Business Review actually wrote this article about how marketers are flunking the big data test, primarily because of one, their ability to understand and read insight into data, but more importantly, it's because there's so much information that they get sidetracked. If you do not have good data people, there's a term used now called a data scientist, but try to get someone to help you with getting insights into good data. Or train yourself to start looking at both your historical data from your existing customers, as well as start looking at your web analytics. Look at your kind of history in your marketing automation platform. Look at your social metrics, and then see, try to gain some insight, and don't get distracted. The main thing with looking at data is to keep an eye on your own business goals and your own marketing objectives, because that will very clearly help you filter out all of the noise, all of the distractions, all of the side talk that prospective customers or competitors might be talking about that might actually distract you from your own business goals. So it's always good to take a step back and be able to look at those goals clearly, and then look at the data and put that into perspective. Uh, Using good analytics will help you create usable and more actionable views or data clusters. So out of all of these big volumes of information that you might get, uh, be able to put a lens to it or put a filter to it in order to be able to clearly define what segments, what of these blocks of data are able to be used, and then accordingly plan some form of action. Uh, Most marketers will either use experience or they will use intuition or a bit of both when they are performing some activity, planning for some initiative, and so on. In terms of big data or this new world in which we are in, try to look at data and make any decisions, any planning, let that come from the data itself. So act on the insights from the data and not from either your own experience or from your own gut, from your own intuition. And that is a slightly difficult task, but the more you train yourself to do that, you will notice that both leadership will appreciate it, but more importantly, you will begin to see really interesting things come out of data. There's an example, for instance, for LinkedIn, where they were looking at the data and they were finding that when someone was being presented with, well, they came up with this hypothesis that if you know person X and you know person Y, there's a good chance that person X might actually know person Y. And when they were looking at data, they decided, they came up with this idea to say, why don't we, even though these people may not be directly linked, why don't we start presenting that option on the screen for someone who's logged into LinkedIn. Now that has become standard practice because that little app basically, or that little feature enhancement basically took off, and now it's the norm. But those are the types of things that actually will help you define your marketing strategy. It will help you develop better products and so on. If you're in the B2C environment in particular, until very recently, brand measurement was always difficult, and that has changed now, and it's becoming a lot easier. There are companies like Cloudera, for instance, and Couchbase, and you'll see these names in Teradata, and they're doing a lot of interesting infrastructural applications for big B2C organizations. In terms of technologies, Hadoop and Cassandra are actually creating these very clear views of massive amounts of data that you will now see within your data set that you can then use for better marketing, for better brand engagement, and so on. But for most of us, if we are in B2B, it's slightly different, and some of the principles of big data still apply here. For one, let's talk about how we can engage in the same context in the B2B environment. What we do at eDynamic is we employ a four-step principle. We call it our unified engagement platform, and it has, as part of that platform, a certain process. The first process is in employing a closed-loop engagement cycle. So creating that platform, understanding the customer, uh, figuring out what are the triggers, what are the motivations, the pain points of that customer or prospect. The second is in characterizing that prospect. So defining the properties that would uh, include creating where they are in maybe the buying cycle, figuring out what their demographics, firmographics might be uh, to create segmentation parameters. The third aspect to this is developing content to align with those motivations, with those expectations of the customer prospect. So getting that data and building a content strategy around your segments, around where they are in the buying cycle are critical. And the fourth element to all of this is being able to plug in all of your platforms. So be able to integrate typically your website with your marketing automation engine, with your CRM tool. So in terms of the buying cycle, using the buying cycle to define engagement, the first uh, uh, thing that we do is we look at what the customer's mindset is through the buying cycle journey. We map this out in consultation with both salespeople, as well as by looking at the data in the CRM system, looking at what deals were closed, what opportunities looked like, what the sales, how long the sales cycle was, and so on. The second thing is in determining the target group. So there might be, if you're dealing with a very long sales cycle, there might be 20 people involved. Who are these people? Who is the key decision maker? Who's the authorizing officer, signing officer? Is there a procurement department involved? Understanding these groups and how each one of them look at uh, uh, the the purchase of the product or the potential interest in the product or service uh, is very eye-opening, because now you are able to then carve out your messages or map out those messages to align with each of those target groups and with each of their pain points, their possible their motivations and their possible objections. And then finally, it's just configuring the applications so that it all works automatically. This is a type of matrix that we use. We map out the buying cycle in a B2B environment, and then we look at barriers, we look at pain points, we look at motivations, we look at possible questions, and we look at actions, at actions that these customers might take, and where they might take this. They might seek out peer or association endorsements, for instance. They might look for reviews. They might go to a Forrester, an analyst group, or a blog or a forum to seek out some information. They might have questions, and these questions are typically questions that they will ask themselves, either to make a decision internally or in order for them to be able to sell this to their bosses in an organization. Some of these might have to do with what's in it for me? Does it save my time? Does it save me money? How does this affect me? How does this benefit me? And then in terms of motivations is, will I be a hero? Will I get a promotion? Will I make more money? Are there other perks on the side? All of these things, when you start mapping them out, it can actually be quite interesting. The final step in this process is automating the whole process. So once you've defined your prospects, once you've developed content, the final step is to create this automated system, because as we know, as we talked about big data, and it affects us in B2B as well, is because this data is so dynamic, unless you're able to have configured triggers to indicate that someone's at a certain stage in their buying cycle, or be in have a certain objection or need to uh, have something validated, you can now use those triggers to automatically put them in specific campaigns or send them specific information or personalize message on or personalize the messaging on their website because now you know what those triggers are. Uh, our very kind of baseline implementation involves three main products along with an analytics product. So we use typically a content management system. We use some form of a marketing automation platform, and we use CRM. We underlie all of this with very deep analytics, and we make sure that everything that is online as far as possible is trackable, and we are able to kind of map out that digital footprint for or behaviors for each of these customers or prospects. This is our Trifecta, so CRM, CMS, and marketing automation with analytics. When they come together, they give us, or they can give you, this common customer view. And that's the main thing, is once you're able to get that common customer view, you can now make decisions fairly dynamically based on certain triggers that these customers are providing. The final step is you've got your content, you've got your tools plugged in, you've got, you know who your audiences are. It's simply a question of creating your campaigns. They might be email campaigns, they might be social campaigns, they might be mobile campaigns. It doesn't matter, but once you know what those triggers are, you're able to then architect out various automated workflows for each of these different campaigns. And depending on where the customer is or the prospect, in whichever mindset they might be, they are now able to get this relevant information in real time or as close to real time as possible in the context in which they are seeking out your product or service. So this is how we put it together. This is our eDynamics Unified Engagement Platform. Ultimately, all we're doing is we are very dynamically taking prospect information and prospect interactions with web properties, with landing pages, with your email content. When we say web properties, we mean communities, we mean intranets, we mean any blog or Facebook page that's been plugged into your marketing automation tool using tracking. You might have Site Catalyst or Core Metrics or Web Trends to be able to track some of this information. We then gather this information and by these business rules for identifying who they are and where they are in the buying cycle, for instance. We're able to then automatically kind of create this very closed engagement stream of information that's fairly fluid but personalized, and we bring them down this spiral to a point of conversion where they're able to kind of raise their hand and say, I want to talk to someone, and kind of lift them out and put them in front of a salesperson. That's what I have. Camille, do we have a poll or do we have questions?
We do have a lot of questions, but since we're running out of time, I don't think we'll be able to take all those questions.
Okay. Yeah, let's take 2 or 3, and then we can take the others over email.
Sure. So the first question is, how should we link our data together at the level of individual customers?
So I think something like this unified engagement platform is one way to do it. Make sure that whatever you are using for your on all of your channels, you're tracking this information. the ability to then uh, attach that activity or attach that history or that digital footprint of each individual, you can then bucket that, and you bucket that into, as I talked about a little while ago, put that into kind of segments or stages in where they might be at in the buying cycle, and accordingly then start communicating to them. Did that answer the
Thank you,
question,
Sean.
Camille?
Yes, I think it did. So the next question is, how can we use big data to effectively personalize our marketing communications?
I think it's related to what I just said. Uh, Ultimately, for big data, you've got to, from a data capture perspective or a data analysis perspective, look at your own business objectives, your business goals. Use an analytics tool or use your own hypothesis to understand what these interactions might be. You're going to get a lot of information coming in. Your goal is to be able to filter through all of that noise and identify only those key bits of information that are relevant to you, that fall within some of those segments that you've identified. Once you're able to do that, you can then you kind of know where this person is. You have some general idea of what this person's motivation might be, what this person's pain point might be. You can now put this person in some form of a campaign. You can forward a tweet. You can use information such as a webinar like this. You can use referrals, so you can use, there are tools now where you can get a customer to validate some of this information. There's a number of ways in which you can do that. But the main thing is to be able to take, to look through all of the data that's coming in and pass them through your own kind of segmentation filters that you have either preset or have hypothesized if you lack a lot of historical information, and then communicate in a personalized way to each of those groups that are falling through those filters. If that makes, I hope that made sense.
Thank you, Sean. There are a few more questions, but since we're running out of time, we'll have to get back to all of the questions after the webinar via email.
Okay, sure.
So at this moment, I would like to thank everyone for attending our webinar. We hope you found it informative. The recording for today's webinar will be available on our website within the next 3 business days, and we'll also be sharing the webcast URL with all the attendees via email. Please feel free to reach out to us at contact@eDynamic.net for any questions you may have. Thank you once again.
Thank you all. Thanks, Camille.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected.